The Aeneid, by Virgil. Written 19 BC. Translated by John Dryden. Book 5. Meantime the Trojan cuts his watery way, fixed he on his voyage, through the curling sea, then, casting back his eyes, with dire amaze, sees on the Punic shore the mounting blaze. The cause unknown, yet his presaging mind the fate of Dido from the fire divanned, he knew the stormy souls of womankind, what secret springs their eager passions move, how capable of death for injured love. Dire auguries from hence the Trojans draw, till neither fires nor shining shores they saw. Now seas and skies their prospect only bound, an empty space above, a floating field around. But soon the heavens with shadows were o'erspread, a swelling cloud hung hovering o'er their head, livid it looked the threatening of a storm, then night and horror ocean's face deform. The pilot, Palinurus, cried aloud, what gusts of weather from that gathering cloud my thoughts presage. Ere yet the tempest roars, stand to your tackle, mates, and stretch your oars, contract your swelling sails, and luff to wind. The frighted crew perform the task assigned. Then, to his fearless chief, not heaven, said he, though Jove himself should promise Italy, can stem the torrent of this raging sea. Mark how the shifting winds from west arise, and what collected night involves the skies. Nor can our shaken vessels live at sea, much less against the tempest force their way. Is fate diverts our course, and fate we must obey. Not far from hence, if I observed aright the southing of the stars, and polar light, Sicilia lies, whose hospitable shores in safety we may reach with struggling oars. Aeneas then replied, too sure I find we strive in vain against the seas and wind, now shift your sails, what place can please me more than what you promise, the Sicilian shore, whose hallowed earth Anchises' bones contains, and where a prince of Trojan lineage reigns. The course resolved, before the western wind they scud amain, and make the port assigned. Meantime Acestes, from a lofty stand, beheld the fleet descending on the land, and, not unmindful of his ancient race, down from the cliff he ran with eager pace, and held the hero in a strict embrace. Of a rough Libyan bear the spoils he wore, and either hand a pointed javelin bore. His mother was a dame of Dardan blood, his sire Crinisus, a Sicilian flood. He welcomes his returning friends ashore with plenteous country cates and homely store. Now, when the following morn had chased away the flying stars, and light restored the day, Aeneas called the Trojan troops around, and thus bespoke them from a rising ground, offspring of heaven, divine Dardanian race. The sun, revolving through each ethereal space, the shining circle of the year has filled, since first this isle my father's ashes held, and now the rising day renews the year, a day for ever sad, for ever dear. This would I celebrate with annual games, with gifts on altars pilled, and holy flames, though banished he to Gaetulia's barren sands, caught on the Grecian seas or hostile lands, but since this happy storm our fleet has driven, not, as I deem, without the will of heaven, upon these friendly shores and flowery plains, which hide Anchises and his blessed remains, let us with joy perform his honours due, and pray for prosperous winds, our voyage to renew, pray, that in towns and temples of our own, the name of great Anchises may be known, and yearly games may spread the gods' renown. Our sports Acestes, of the Trojan race, with royal gifts ordained, is pleased to grace, 2 steers on every ship the king bestows, his gods and ours shall share your equal vows. Besides if, 9 days hence, the rosy morn shall with unclouded light the skies adorn, that day with solemn sports I mean to grace, light galleys on the seas shall run a watery race, some shall in swiftness for the goal contend, and others try the twanging bow to bend, the strong, with iron gauntlets armed, shall stand opposed in combat on the yellow sand. Let all be present at the games prepared, and joyful victors wait the just reward. But now assist the rites, with garlands crowned, he said, and first his brows with myrtle bound. Then Helymus, by his example led, and old Acestes, each adorned his head, thus young Ascanius, with a sprightly grace, his temples tied, and all the Trojan race. Aeneas then advanced amidst the train, by thousands followed thro' the flowery plain, to great Anchises' tomb, which when he found, he poured to Bacchus, on the hallowed ground, 2 bowls of sparkling wine, of milk 2 more, and 2, from offered bulls, of purple gore, with roses then the sepulchre he strode and thus his father's ghost bespoke aloud, Hail, O ye holy manes! Hail again, paternal ashes, now reviewed in vain. The gods permitted not, that you, with me, should reach the promised shores of Italy, or Tiber's flood, what flood soe'er it be. Scarce had he finished when, with speckled pride, a serpent from the tomb began to glide, his huge bulk on 7 high volumes rolled, blue was his breadth of back, but streaked with scaly gold, thus riding on his curls, he seemed to pass a rolling fire along, and singe the grass. More various colours thro' his body run, than Iris when her bow imbibes the sun. Betwixt the rising altars, and around, the sacred monster shot along the ground, with harmless play amidst the bowls he passed, and with his lolling tongue essayed the taste, thus fed with holy food, the wondrous guest within the hollow tomb retired to rest. The pious prince, surprised at what he viewed, the funeral honours with more zeal renewed, doubtful if this place his genius were, or guardian of his father's sepulchre. 5 sheep, according to the rites, he slew, as many swine, and steers of sable hue, new generous wine he from the goblets poured. And called his father's ghost, from hell restored. The glad attendants in long order come, offering their gifts at great Anchises' tomb, some add more oxen, some divide the spoil, some place the chargers on the grassy soil, some blow the fires, and off entrails broil. Now came the day desired. The skies were bright with rosy lustre of the rising light, the bordering people, rude by sounding fame of Trojan feasts and great Acestes' name, the crowded shore with acclamations fill, part to behold, and part to prove their skill. And first the gifts in public view they place, green laurel wreaths, and palm, the victor's grace, within the circle, arms and tripods lie, ingots of gold and silver, heaped on high, and vests embroidered, of the Tyrian dye. The trumpet's clangour then the feast proclaims, and all prepare for their appointed games. 4 galleys first, which equal rowers bear, advancing, in the watery lists appear. The speedy dolphin, that outstrips the wind, bore Mnestheus, author of the Memmian kind, Gyas the vast Chimera's bulk commands, which rising, like a towering city stands, 3 Trojans tug at every labouring oar, 3 banks in 3 degrees the sailors bore, beneath their sturdy strokes the billows roar. Sargestus, who began the Sargian race, in the great centaur took the leading place, Clonthus on the sea-green Scylla stood, from whom Cluentius draws his Trojan blood. Far in the sea, against the foaming shore, there stands a rock, the raging billows roar above his head in storms, but, when tea is clear, uncurl their ridgy backs, and at his foot appear. In peace below the gentle waters run, the cormorants above lie basking in the sun. On this the hero fixed an oak in sight, the mark to guide the mariners aright. To bear with this, the seamen stretch their oars, then round the rock they steer, and seek the former shores. The lots decide their place. Above the rest, each leader shining in his Tyrian vest, the common crew with wreaths of poplar boughs their temples crown, and shade their sweaty brows, besmeared with oil, their naked shoulders shine. All take their seats, and wait the sounding sign, they gripe their oars, and every panting breast is rised by turns with hope, by turns with fear depressed. The clangour of the trumpet gives the sign, at once they start, advancing in a line, with shouts the sailors rend the starry skies, lashed with their oars, the smoky billows rise, sparkles the briny main, and the vexed ocean fries. Exact in time, with equal strokes they row, at once the brushing oars and brazen prow dash up the sandy waves, and ope the depths below. Not fiery coursers, in a chariot race, invade the field with half so swift a pace, not the fierce driver with more fury lends the sounding lash, and, ere the stroke descends, low to the wheels his pliant body bends. The partial crowd their hopes and fears divide, and aid with eager shouts the favoured side. Cries, murmurs, clamours with a mixing sound, from woods to woods, from hills to hills rebound. Amidst the loud applauses of the shore, Gyas outstripped the rest, and sprung before, Cloanthus, better manned, pursued him fast, but his all-masted galley checked his haste. The centaur and the dolphin brushed the brine with equal oars, advancing in a line, and now the mighty centaur seems to lead, and now the speedy dolphin gets ahead, now board to board the rival vessels row, the billows lave the skies, and ocean groans below. They reached the mark. Proud Gyas and his train in triumph rode, the victors of the main, but, steering round, he charged his pilot stand more close to shore, and skim along the sand let others bear to sea. Many's heard, but secret shelves too cautiously he feared, and, fearing, sought the deep, and still aloof he steered. With louder cries the captain called again, there to the rocky shore, and shun the main. He spoke, and, speaking, at his stern he saw the bold Cloanthus near the shelvings draw. Betwixt the mark and him the Scylla stood, and in a closer compass ploughed the flood. He passed the mark, and, wheeling, got before, Gyas blasphemed the gods, devoutly swore, cried out for anger, and his hair he tore. Mindless of others' lives, so high was grown his rising rage, and careless of his own, the trembling dotard to the deck he drew, then hoisted up, and overboard he threw. This done, he seized the helm, his fellows cheered, turned short upon the shelves, and madly steered. Hardly his head the plunging pilot rears, clogged with his clothes, and cumbered with his years, now dropping wet, he climbs the cliff with pain. The crowd, that saw him fall and float again, shout from the distant shore, and loudly laughed to see his heaving breast disgorge the briny draught. The following centaur, and the dolphin's crew, their vanished hopes of victory renew, while Gyas lags, they kindle in the race, to reach the mark. Sargestus takes the place, Mnestheus pursues, and while around they wind, comes up, not half his galley's length behind, then, on the deck, amidst his mates appeared, and thus their drooping courage he cheered, my friends, and Hector's followers heretofore, exert your vigour, tug the labouring oar, stretch to your strokes, my still unconquered crew, whom from the flaming walls of Troy I drew. In this, our common interest, let me find that strength of hand, that courage of the mind, as when you stemmed the strong Malian flood, and o'er the sea its broken billows rode. I seek not now the foremost palm to gain, though yet but, that haughty wish is vain. Let those enjoy it whom the gods ordain. But to be last, the lags of all the race. Redeem yourselves and me from that disgrace. Now, one and all, they tug amain, they row at the full stretch, and shake the brazen prow. The sea beneath them sinks, their labouring sides are swelled, and sweat runs guttering down in tides. Chance aids their daring with unhopped success, Sargestus, eager with his beak to press betwixt the rival galley and the rock, shuts up unwieldy centaur in the lock. The vessel struck, and, with the dreadful shock, her oars she shivered, and her head she broke. The trembling rowers from their banks arise, and, anxious for themselves, renounce the prize. With iron poles they heave her off the shores, and gather from the sea their floating oars. The crew of Mnestheus, with elated minds, urge their success, and call the willing winds, then ply their oars, and cut their liquid way in larger compass on the roomy sea. As, when the dove her rocky hold forsakes rude in affright, her sounding wings she shakes, the cavern rings with clattering, out she flies, and leaves her callow care, and cleaves the skies. At first she flutters, but at length she springs to smoother flight, and shoots upon her wings, so Mnestheus in the dolphin cuts the sea, and, flying with a force, that force assists his way. Sargestus in the centaur soon he passed, wedged in the rocky shoals, and sticking fast. In vain the victor he with cries implores, and practices to row with shattered oars. Then Mnestheus bears with gyres, and outflies the ship, without a pilot, yields the prize. Unvanquished Scylla now alone remains, her he pursues, and all his vigour strains. Shouts from the favouring multitude arise, applauding echo to the shouts replies, shouts, wishes, and applause run rattling through the skies. These clamours with disdain the Scylla heard, much grudged the praise, but more the robbed reward, resolved to hold their own, they mend their pace, all obstinate to die, or gain the race. Rised with success, the dolphin swiftly ran, for they can conquer, who believe they can. Both urge their oars, and fortune both supplies, and both perhaps had shard an equal prize, when to the seas Cloanthus holds his hands, and succour from the watery powers demands, gods of the liquid realms, on which I row. If, given by you, the laurel bind my brow, assist to make me guilty of my vow. A snow-white bull shall on your shore be slain, his offered entrails cast into the main, and ruddy wine, from golden goblets thrown, your grateful gift and my return shall own. The choir of nymphs, and Phorcus, from below, with virgin Panopea, heard his vow, and old Portunus, with his breadth of hand, pushed he on, and sped the galley to the land. Swift as a shaft, or winged wind, she flies, and, darting to the port, obtains the prize. The herald summons all, and then proclaims Cloanthus conqueror of the naval games. The prince with laurel crowns the victor's head, and 3 fat steers are to his vessel led, the ship's reward, with generous wine beside, and sums of silver, which the crew divide. The leaders are distinguished from the rest, the victor honoured with a nobler vest, where gold and purple strive in equal rows, and needlework its happy cost bestows. Their Ganymede is wrought with living art, chasing through Ida's groves the trembling heart, breathless he seems, yet eager to pursue, when from aloft descends in open view, the bird of Jove, and, sousing on his prey, with crooked talons bears the boy away. In vain, with lifted hands and gazing eyes, his guards behold him soaring through the skies, and dogs pursue his flight with imitated cries. Mnestheus the second victor was declared, and, summoned there, the second prize he shard. A coat of mail, brave Demoleus bore, more brave Aeneas from his shoulders tore, in single combat on the Trojan shore, this was ordained for Mnestheus to possess, in war for his defence, for ornament in peace. Rich was the gift, and glorious to behold, but yet so ponderous with its plates of gold, that scarce 2 servants could the weight sustain, yet, loaded thus, Demoleus o'er the plain pursued and lightly seized the Trojan train. The third, succeeding to the last reward, 2 goodly bowls of massy silver shard, with figures prominent, and richly wrought, and 2 brass cauldrons from Dodona brought. Thus all, rewarded by the heroes' hands, their conquering temples bound with purple bands, and now Sargestus, clearing from the rock, brought back his galley shattered with the shock. Forlorn she looked without an aiding oar, and, houted by the vulgar, made to shore. As when a snake, surprised upon the road, is crushed athwart her body by the load of heavy wheels, or with a mortal wound her belly bruised, and trodden to the ground, in vain, with loosened curls, she crawls along, yet, fierce above, she brandishes her tongue, glares with her eyes, and bristles with her scales, but, grovelling in the dust, her parts unsound she trails, so slowly to the port the centaur tends, but, what she wants in oars, with sails amends. Yet, for his galley salved, the grateful prince is pleased each unhappy chief to recompense. Pholoe, the Cretan slave, rewards his care, beauteous herself, with lovely twins as fair. From thence his way the Trojan hero bent into the neighbouring plain, with mountains pent, whose sides were shaded with surrounding wood. Full in the midst of this fair valley stood a native theatre, which, rising slow by just degrees, o'erlooked the ground below. High on a sylvan throne the leader sate, a numerous train attend in solemn state. Here those that in the rapid course delight, desire of honour and the prize invite. The rival runners without order stand, the Trojans mixed with the Sicilian band. First Nisus, with Euryalus, appears, Euryalus a boy of blooming years, with sprightly grace and equal beauty crowned, Nisus, for friendship to the youth renowned. Diores next of Priam's royal race, then Salius joined with Patron, took their place. But Patron in Arcadia had his birth, and Salius is from Acarnanian earth. Then two Sicilian youths, the names of these, swift Helymus, and lovely Panopes, both jolly huntsmen, both in forest bred, and owning old Acestes for their head, with several others of ignobler name, whom time has not delivered o'er to fame. To these the hero thus his thoughts explained, in words which general approbation gained. One common largesse is for all designed, the vanquished and the victor shall be joined, two darts of polished steel and Nosian wood, a silver-studded axe, alike bestowed. The foremost three have olive wreaths decreed, the first of these obtains a stately steed, adorned with trappings, and the next in fame, the quiver of an Amazonian dame, with feathered Thracian arrows well supplied, a golden belt shall gird his manly side, which with a sparkling diamond shall be tied. The third this Grecian helmet shall content, he said. To their appointed base they went, with beating hearts each expected sign receive, and, starting all at once, the barrier leave. Spread out, as on the winged winds, they flew, and seized the distant goal with greedy view. Shot from the crowd, swift Nisus all o'er passed he, nor storms, nor thunder, equal half his haste. The next, but though the next, yet far disjoined, came Salius, and Euryalus behind, then Helymus, whom young Diores plied, step after step, and almost side by side, his shoulders pressing, and, in longer space, had won, or left at least a dubious race. Now, spent, the goal they almost reach at last, when eager Nisus, hapless in his haste, slipped he first, and, slipping, fell upon the plain, soaked he with the blood of oxen newly slain. The careless victor had not marked he his way, but, treading where the treacherous puddle lay, his heels flew up, and on the grassy floor he fell, besmeared with filth and holy gore. Not mindless then, Euryalus, of thee, nor of the sacred bonds of amity, he strove to each immediate rival's hope to cross, and caught the foot of Salius as he rose. So Salius lay extended on the plain, Euryalus springs out, the prize to gain, and leaves the crowd, applauding peals attend the victor to the goal, who vanquished by his friend. Next Helymus, and then Diores came, by two misfortunes made the third in fame. But Salius enters, and, exclaiming loud for justice, deafens and disturbs the crowd, urges his cause may in the court be heard, and pleads the prize is wrongfully conferred. But favor for Euryalus appears, his blooming beauty, with his tender tears, had bribed the judges for the promised prize. Besides, Diores fills the court with cries, who vainly reaches at the last reward, if the first palm on Salius be conferred. Then thus the prince, let no disputes arise, where fortune placed it, I award the prize. But fortune's errors give me leave to mend, at least to pity my deserving friend, he said, and, from among the spoils, he draws, ponderous with shaggy mane and golden paws, a lion's hide, to Salius this he gives. Nisus with envy sees the gift, and grieves. If such rewards to vanquished men are due, he said, and falling is to rise by you, what prize may Nisus from your bounty claim, who merited the first rewards and fame? In falling, both an equal fortune tried, would fortune for my fall so well provide. With this he pointed to his face, and showed his hand and all his habit smeared with blood. Th indulgent father of the people smilled, and caused to be produced an ample shield of wondrous art, by Didyman wrought, long since from Neptune's bars in triumph brought. This given to Nisus, he divides the rest, and equal justice in his gifts expressed he. The race thus ended, and rewards bestowed, once more the princes bespeaks each attentive crowd, if there he hear whose dauntless courage dare in gauntlet fight, with limbs and body bare, his opposite sustain in open view, stand forth the champion, and the games renew. Two prizes I propose, and thus divide, a bull with gilded horns, and fillets tied, shall be the portion of the conquering chief, a sword and helm shall cheer the loser's grief. Then haughty dares in the lists appears, stalking he strides, his head erected bears, his nervous arms the weighty gauntlet wield, and loud applauses echo through the field. Dares alone in combat are steed to stand the match of mighty Paris, hand to hand, the same, at Hector's funerals, undertook gigantic beauties, of Amycian stock, and, by the stroke of his resistless hand, stretched he the vast bulk upon the yellow sand. Such Dares was, and such he strode along, and drew the wonder of the gazing throng. His brawny back and ample breast he shows, his lifted arms around his head he throws, and deals in whistling air his empty blows. His match is sought, but, through the trembling band, not one dares answer to the proud demand. Presuming of his force, with sparkling eyes already he devours the promised prize. He claims the bull with awless insolence, and having seized his horns, accosts the prince, if none my matchless valour dares oppose, how long shall dares wait his dastard foes? Permit me, chief, permit without delay, to lead this uncontended gift away. The crowd assents, and with redoubled cries for the proud challenger demands the prize. Acestes, furred with just disdain, to see the palm usurped without a victory, reproached Entellus thus, who sate beside, and heard and saw, unmoved, the Trojans' pride, once, but in vain, a champion of renown, so tamely can you bear the ravished crown, a prize in triumph borne before your sight, and shun, for fear, the danger of the fight. Where is our Eryx now, the boasted name, the god who taught your thundering arm the game? Where now your baffled honor? Where the spoil that filled your house, and fame that filled our isle? Entellus, thus, my soul is still the same, unmoved with fear, and moved with martial fame, but my chill blood is curdled in my veins, and scarce the shadow of a man remains. Oh, could I turn to that fair prime again, that prime of which this boaster is so vain, the brave, who this decrepit age defies, should feel my force, without the promised prize? He said, and, rising at the word, he threw two ponderous gauntlets down in open view, gauntlets which Eryx wont in fight to wield, and sheath his hands within the listed field. With fear and wonder seized, the crowd beholds the gloves of death, with 7 distinguished folds of tough bull hides, the space within is spread with iron, or with loads of heavy lead. Dares himself was daunted at the sight, renounced he his challenge, and refused to fight. Astonished he at their weight, the hero stands, and poured the ponderous engines in his hands. What had your wonder, said Entellus, been, had you the gauntlets of Alcides seen, or viewed the stern debate on this unhappy green? These which I bear your brother Eryx bore, still marked he with battered brains and mingled gore. With these he long sustained each Herculean arm, and these I wielded while my blood was warm, this languished frame while better spirits fed, ere age unstrung my nerves, or time o'ersnowed my head. But if the challenger these arms refuse, and cannot wield their weight, or dare not use, if great Aeneas and Acestes join in his request, these gauntlets I resign, let us with equal arms perform the fight, and let him leave to fear, since I resign my right. This said, Entellus for the strife prepares, stripped of his quilted coat, his body bares, compassed he of mighty bones and brawn he stands, a goodly towering object on the sands. Then just Aeneas equal arms supplied, which round their shoulders to their wrists they tied. Both on the tiptoe stand, at full extent, their arms aloft, their bodies inly bent, their heads from aiming blows they bear afar, with clashing gauntlets then provoke the war. One on his youth and pliant limbs relies, one on his sinews and his giant size. The last is stiff with age, his motion slow, he heaves for breath, he staggers to and fro, and clouds of issuing smoke his nostrils loudly blow. Yet equal in success, they ward, they strike, their ways are different, but their art alike. Before, behind, the blows are dealt, around their hollow sides the rattling thumps resound. A storm of strokes, well meant, with fury flies, and errs about their temples, ears, and eyes. Nor always errs, for oft the gauntlet draws a sweeping stroke along the crackling jaws. Heavy with age, Entellus stands his ground, but with his warping body wards the wound. His hand and a watchful eye keep even pace, while dares traverses and shifts his place, and, like a captain who beleaguers round some strong-built castle on a rising ground, views all th approaches with observing eyes, this and that other part in vain he tries, and more on industry than force relies. With hands on high, Entellus threats the foe, but dares watched the motion from below, and slipped aside, and shunned the long descending blow. Entellus wastes his forces on the wind, and, thus deluded of the stroke designed, headlong and heavy fell, his ample breast and weighty limbs his ancient mother pressed. So falls a hollow pine, that long had stood on Ida's height, or Erymanthus wood, torn from the roots. The differing nations rise, and shouts and mingled murmurs rend the skies. Acestus runs with eager haste, to raise the fallen companion of his youthful days. Dauntless he rose, and to the fight returned, with shame his glowing cheeks, his eyes with fury burned. Disdain and conscious virtue furred his breast, and with redoubled force his foe he pressed. He lays on load with either hand, amain, and headlong drives the Trojan o'er the plain, nor stops, nor stays, nor rest nor breath allows, but storms of strokes descend about his brows, a rattling tempest, and a hail of blows. But now the prince, who saw the wild increase of wounds, commands the combatants to cease, and bounds Entellus wrath, and bids the peace. First the Trojan, spent with toil, he came, and soothed his sorrow for the suffered shame. What fury seized my friend? The gods, said he, to him propitious, and averse to thee, have given his arms superior force to thine. 'Tis madness to contend with strength divine. The gauntlet fight thus ended, from the shore his faithful friends unhappy dares bore, his mouth and nostrils poured a purple flood, and pounded teeth came rushing with his blood. Faintly he staggered thro' the hissing throng, and hung his head, and trailed his legs along. The sword and casque are carried by his train, but with his foe the palm and ox remain. The champion, then, before Aeneas came, proud of his prize, but prouder of his fame, O goddess born, and you, Dardanian host, mark with attention, and forgive my boast, learn what I was, by what remains, and know from what impending fate you saved my foe. Sternly he spoke, and then confronts the bull, and, on his ample forehead aiming full, the deadly stroke, descending, pierced the skull. Down drops the beast, nor needs a second wound, but sprawls in pangs of death, and spurns the ground. Then, thus, in dare's stead I offer this. Eryx, accept a nobler sacrifice, take the last gift my withered arms can yield, thy gauntlets I resign, and here renounce the field. This done, Aeneas orders, for the close, the strife of archers with contending bows. The masts are gestures shattered galley bore with his own hands he raises on the shore. A fluttering dove upon the top they tie, the living mark at which their arrows fly. The rival archers in a line advance, their turn of shooting to receive from chance. A helmet holds their names, the lots are drawn, on the first scroll was read Hippocoon. The people shout. Upon the next was found young Mnestheus, late with naval honours crowned. The third contained Eurytion's noble name, thy brother, Pardarus, and next in fame, whom Pallas urged the treaty to confound, and send among the Greeks a feathered wound. Acestes in the bottom last remained, whom not his age from youthful sports restrained. Soon all with vigour bend their trusty bows, and from the quiver each his arrow chose. Hippocoon's was the first, with forceful sway it flew, and, whizzing, cut the liquid way. Fixed in the mast the feathered weapon stands, the fearful pigeon flutters in her bands, and the tree trembled, and the shouting cries of the pleased people rend the vaulted skies. Then Mnestheus to the head his arrow drove, with lifted eyes, and took his aim above, but made a glancing shot, and missed the dove, yet missed he so narrow, that he cut the cord which fastened by the foot the flitting bird. The captive thus released, away she flies, and beats with clapping wings the yielding skies. His bow already bent, Eurytion stood, and, having first invoked he his brother god, his winged shaft with eager haste he sped. The fatal message reached he her as she fled, she leaves her life aloft, she strikes the ground, and renders back the weapon in the wound. Acestes, grudging at his lot, remains, without a prize to gratify his pains. Yet, shooting upward, sends his shaft, to show an archer's art, and boast his twanging bow. The feathered arrow gave a dire portent, and latter augurs judge from this event. Chafed he by the speed, it furred, and, as it flew, a trail of following flames ascending drew, kindling they mount, and mark the shiny way, across the skies as falling meteors play, and vanish into wind, or in a blaze decay. The Trojans and Sicilians wildly stare, and, trembling, turn their wonder into prayer. The Dardan prince put on a smiling face, and strained Acestes with a close embrace, then, honouring him with gifts above the rest, turned the bad omen, nor his fears confessed he. The gods, said he, this miracle have wrought, and ordered you the prize without the lot. Accept this goblet, rough with figured gold, which Thracian Chryseis gave my sire of old, this pledge of ancient amity receive, which to my second sire I justly give, he said, and, with the trumpet's cheerful sound, proclaimed him victor, and with laurel crowned. Nor good Eurytion envied him the prize, though he transfixed the pigeon in the skies. Who cut the line, with second gifts was Gracdi, the third was his whose arrow pierced the mast. The chief, before the games were wholly done, called Periphantes, tutor to his son, and whispered thus, with speed Ascanius find, and, if his childish troop be ready joined, on horseback let him grace his grandsire's day, and lead his equals armed in just array. He said, and, calling out, the cirque he clears. The crowd withdrawn, an open plain appears. And now the noble youths of form divine, advance before their fathers, in a line, the riders grace the steeds with glory shine. Thus marching on in military pride, shouts of applause resound from side to side. Their casques adorned with laurel wreaths they wear, each brandishing aloft a cornel spear. Some at their backs their gilded quivers bore, their chains of burnished gold hung down before. 3 graceful troops they formed upon the green, 3 graceful leaders at their head were seen, 12 followed every chief, and left a space between. The first young Priam led, a lovely boy, whose grandsire was Th unhappy king of Troy, his race in after times was known to fame, new honours adding to the Latian name, and well the royal boy his Thracian steed became. White were the fetlocks of his feet before, and on his front a snowy star he bore. Then beauteous Attis, with Iülus bred, of equal age, the second squadron led. The last in order, but the first in place, first in the lovely features of his face, rode fair Ascanius on a fiery steed, Queen Dido's gift, and of the Tyrian breed. Sure coursers for the rest the king ordains, with golden bits adorned, and purple reins. The pleased spectators peals of shouts renew, and all the parents in the children view, their make, their motions, and their sprightly grace, and hopes and fears alternate in their face. Th unfledged commanders and their martial train first make the circuit of the sandy plain around their sires, and, at Th appointed sign, drawn up in beauteous order, form a line. The second signal sounds, the troop divides in 3 distinguished parts, with 3 distinguished guides again they close, and once again disjoin, in troop to troop opposed, and line to line. They meet, they wheel, they throw their darts afar with harmless rage and well-dissembled war. Then in around the mingled bodies run, flying they follow, and pursuing shun, broken, they break, and, rallying, they renew in other forms the military show. At last, in order, undiscerned they join, and march together in a friendly line. And, as the Cretan labyrinth of old, with wandering ways and many a winding fold, involved the weary feet, without redress, in a round error, which denied recess, so fought the Trojan boys in warlike play, turned and returned, and still a different way. Thus dolphins in the deep each other chase in circles, when they swim around the watery race. This game, these carousels, Aeneas taught, and, building Alba, to the Latins brought, showed what he learned. The Latin sires impart to their succeeding sons the graceful art. From these imperial Rome received the game, which Troy, the youths the Trojan troop, they name. Thus far the sacred sports they celebrate, but fortune soon resumed her ancient hate, for, while they pay the dead his annual dues, those envied rites Saturnian Juno views, and sends the goddess of the various bow, to try new methods of revenge below, supplies the winds to wing her airy way, where in the port secure the navy lay. Swiftly fair Iris down her arch descends, and, undiscerned, her fatal voyage ends. She saw the gathering crowd, and, gliding thence, the desert shore, and fleet without defence. The Trojan matrons on the sands alone, with sighs and tears Anchises' death bemoan, then, turning to the sea their weeping eyes, their pity to themselves renews their cries. Alas, said one, what oceans yet remain for us to sail? What labours to sustain? All take the word, and, with a general groan, implore the gods for peace, and places of their own. The goddess, great in mischief, views their pains, and in a woman's form her heavenly limbs restrains. In face and shape old Beroe she became, Doricles' wife, a venerable dame, once blessed with riches, and a mother's name. Thus changed, amidst the crying crowd she ran, mixed with the matrons, and these words began, O wretched we, whom not the Grecian power, nor flames, destroyed, in Troy's unhappy hour. O wretched we, reserved by cruel fate, beyond the ruins of the sinking state. Now 7 revolving years are wholly run, since this improsperous voyage we begun, since, tossed from shores to shores, from lands to lands, inhospitable rocks and barren sands, wandering in exile through the stormy sea, we search in vain for flying Italy. Now cast by fortune on this kindred land, what should our rest and rising walls withstand, or hinder here to fix our banished band? O country lost, and gods redeemed in vain, if still in endless exile we remain. Shall we no more the Trojan walls renew, or streams of some dissembled Simois view? Haste, join with me, th unhappy fleet consume. Cassandra bids, and I declare her doom. In sleep I saw her, she supplied my hands, for this I more than dreamt, with flaming brands, with these, said she, these wandering ships destroy, these are your fatal seats, and this your Troy. Time calls you now, the precious hour employ, slack not the good presage, while heaven inspires our minds to dare, and gives the ready fires. See! Neptune's altars minister their brands, the god is pleased, the god supplies our hands. Then from the pile a flaming fire she drew, and, tossed in air, amidst the galleys threw. Wrapped in amaze, the matrons wildly stare, then Pyggo, reverenced for her hoary hair, Pyggo, the nurse of Priam's numerous race, no Beroe this, though she belies her face. What terrors from her frowning front arise? Behold a goddess in her ardent eyes. What rays around her heavenly face are seen? Mark her majestic voice, and more than mortal mien. Beroe but now I left, whom, pinned with pain, her age and anguish from these rites detain, she said. The matrons, seized with new amaze, roll their malignant eyes, and on the navy gaze. They fear, and hope, and neither part obey, they hope the fated land, but fear the fatal way. The goddess, having done her task below, mounts up on equal wings, and bends her painted bow. Struck with the sight, and seized with rage divine, the matrons prosecute their mad design, they shriek aloud, they snatch, with impious hands, the food of altars, fires and flaming brands. Green boughs and saplings, mingled in their haste, and smoking torches on the ships they cast. The flame, unstopped at first, more fury gains, and Vulcan rides at large with loosened reins, triumphant to the painted sterns he soars, and seizes, in this way, the banks and crackling oars. Eumelus was the first the news to bear, while yet they crowd the rural theatre. Then, what they hear, is witnessed by their eyes, a storm of sparkles and of flames arise. Ascanius took th alarm, while yet he led his early warriors on his prancing steed, and, spurring on, his equals soon o'erpassed nor could his frighted friends reclaim his haste. Soon as the royal youth appeared in view, he sent his voice before him as he flew, "What madness moves you, matrons, to destroy the last remainders of unhappy Troy? Not hostile fleets, but your own hopes, you burn, and on your friends your fatal fury turn. Behold your own Ascanius." While he said, he drew his glittering helmet from his head, in which the youths to sportful arms he led. By this, Aeneas and his train appear, and now the women, seized with shame and fear, dispersed, to woods and caverns take their flight, abhor their actions, and avoid the light, their friends acknowledge, and their error find, and shake the goddess from their altered mind. Not so the raging fires their fury cease, but, lurking in the seams, with seeming peace, work on their way amid the smouldering tow, sure in destruction, but in motion slow. The silent plague through the green timber eats, and vomits out a tardy flame by fits. Down to the keels, and upward to the sails, the fire descends, or mounts, but still prevails, nor buckets poured, nor strength of human hand, can the victorious element withstand. The pious hero rends his robe, and throws to heaven his hands, and with his hands his vows. "O Jove," he cried, "if prayers can yet have place, if thou abhorrest not all the Dardan race, if any spark of pity still remain, if gods are gods, and not invoked in vain, yet spare the relics of the Trojan train. Yet from the flames our burning vessels free, or let thy fury fall alone on me. At this devoted head thy thunder throw, and send the willing sacrifice below." Scarce had he said, when southern storms arise, from pole to pole the forky lightning flies, loud rattling shakes the mountains and the plain, heaven bellies downward, and descends in rain. Whole sheets of water from the clouds are sent, which, hissing through the planks, the flames prevent, and stop the fiery pest. 4 ships alone burn to the waist, and for the fleet atone. But doubtful thoughts the hero's heart divide, if he should still in Sicily reside, forgetful of his fates, or tempt the main, in hope the promised Italy to gain. Then Nautes, old and wise, to whom alone the will of heaven by Pallas was foreshown, versed in portents, experienced and inspired to tell events, and what the fates required, thus while he stood, to neither part inclined, with cheerful words relieved his laboring mind. "O goddess born, resigned in every state, with patience bear, with prudence push your fate. By suffering well, our fortune we subdue, fly when she frowns, and, when she calls, pursue. Your friend Acestes is of Trojan kind, to him disclose the secrets of your mind, trust in his hands your old and useless train, too numerous for the ships which yet remain, the feeble, old, indulgent of their ease, the dames who dread the dangers of the seas, with all the dastard crew, who dare not stand the shock of battle with your foes by land. Here you may build a common town for all, and, from Acestes' name, Assus to call." The reasons, with his friend's experience joined, encouraged much, but more disturbed his mind. Was dead of night, when to his slumbering eyes his father's shade descended from the skies, and thus he spoke: "O more than vital breath, loved while I lived, and dear even after death, O son, in various toils and troubles tossed the King of Heaven employs my careful ghost on his commands, the God, who saved from fire your flaming fleet, and heard your just desire. The wholesome counsel of your friend receive, and here the coward train and woman leave, the chosen youth, and those who nobly dare, transport, to tempt the dangers of the war. The stern Italians will their courage try, rough are their manners, and their minds are high. But first to Pluto's palace you shall go, and seek my shade among the blessed below, for not with impious ghosts my soul remains, nor suffers with the damned perpetual pains, but breathes the living air of soft Elysian plains. The chaste Sibylla shall your steps convey, and blood of offered victims free the way. There shall you know what realms the gods assign, and learn the fates and fortunes of your line. But now, farewell. I vanish with the night, and feel the blast of heaveness approaching light, he said, and mixed with shades, and took his airy flight. Whither so fast? The filial duty cried, and why, ah why, the wished embrace denied? He said, and rose, as holy zeal inspires, he rakes hot embers, and renews the fires, his country gods and Vesta then adores with cakes and incense, and their aid implores. Next, for his friends and royal host he sent, revealed his vision, and the gods' intent, with his own purpose. All, without delay, the will of Jove, and his desires obey. They list with women each degenerate name, who dares not hazard life, future fame. These they cashier, the brave remaining few, oars, banks, and cables, half consumed, renew. The prince designs a city with the plough, the lots their several tenements allow. This part is armed from Ilium, that from Troy, and the new king ascends the throne with joy, a chosen senate from the people draws, appoints the judges, and ordains the laws. Then, on the top of Eryx, they begin a rising temple to the Paphian queen. Anchises, last, is honored as a god, a priest is added, annual gifts bestowed, and groves are planted round his blessed abode. 9 days they pass in feasts, their temples crowned, and fumes of incense in the fanes abound. Then from the south arose a gentle breeze that curled the smoothness of the glassy seas, the rising winds a ruffling gale afford, and call the merry mariners aboard. Now loud laments along the shores resound, of parting friends in close embraces bound. The trembling women, the degenerate train, who shunned the frightful dangers of the main, even those desire to sail, and take their share of the rough passage and the promised war, whom good Aeneas cheers, and recommends to their new master's care his fearful friends. On Eryx's altars 3 fat calves he lays, a lamb new fallen to the stormy seas, then slips his hawsers, and his anchors weighs. High on the deck the godlike hero stands, with olive crowned, a charger in his hands, then cast the reeking entrails in the brine, and poured the sacrifice of purple wine. Fresh gales arise, with equal strokes they vie, and brush the buxom seas, and o'er the billows fly. Meantime the mother goddess, full of fears, to Neptune thus addressed he, with tender tears, the pride of Jove's imperious queen, the rage, the malice which no sufferings can assuage, compel me to these prayers, since neither fate, nor time, nor pity, can remove her hate, even Jove is thwarted by his haughty wife, still vanquished he, yet she still renews the strife. As if tea were little to consume the town which awed the world, and wore th imperial crown, she prosecutes the ghost of Troy with pains, and gnaws, even to the bones, the last remains. Let her the causes of her hatred tell, but you can witness its effects too well. You saw the storm she rised on Libyan floods, that mixed the mounting billows with the clouds, when, bribing Aeolus, she shook the main, and moved rebellion in your watery reign. With fury she possessed the Dardan dames, to burn their fleet with execrable flames, and forced Aeneas, when his ships were lost, to leave his followers on a foreign coast. For what remains, your godhead I implore, and trust my son to your protecting power. If neither Jove's nor fate's decree withstand, secure his passage to the Latian land. Then thus the mighty ruler of the main, what may not Venus hope from Neptune's reign? My kingdom claims your birth, my late defense of your endangered fleet may claim your confidence. Nor less by land than sea my deeds declare how much your loved Aeneas is my care. Thee, Xanthus, and thee, Simois, I attest. Your Trojan troops when proud Achilles pressed thee, and drove before him headlong on the plain, and dashed against the walls the trembling train, when floods were filled with bodies of the slain, when crimson Xanthus, doubtful of his way, stood up on ridges to behold the sea. New heaps came tumbling in, and chocked his way, when your Aeneas fought, but fought with odds of force unequal, and unequal gods. I spread a cloud before the victor's sight, sustained the vanquished and secured his flight. Even then secured him, when I sought with joy the vowed destruction of ungrateful Troy. My will's the same, fair goddess, fear no more, your fleet shall safely gain the Latian shore, their lives are given, one destined head alone shall perish, and for multitudes atone. Thus having armed with hopes her anxious mind, his finny team Saturnian Neptune joined, then adds the foamy bridle to their jaws, and to the loosened reins permits the laws. High on the waves his azure car he guides its axles thunder, and the sea subsides, and the smooth ocean rolls her silent tides. The tempests fly before their father's face, trains of inferior gods his triumph grace, and monster whales before their master play, and choirs of Tritons crowd the watery way. The marshalled powers in equal troops divide to right and left, the gods his better side enclose, and on the worse the nymphs and Nereids ride. Now smiling hope, with sweet vicissitude, within the hero's mind his joys renewed. He calls to raise the masts, the sheets display, the cheerful crew with diligence obey, they scud before the wind, and sail in open sea. Ahead of all the master pilot steers, and, as he leads, the following navy veers. The steeds of night had travelled half the sky, the drowsy rowers on their benches lie, when the soft god of sleep, with easy flight, descends, and draws behind a trail of light. Thou, Palinurus, art his destined prey, to thee alone he takes his fatal way. Dire dreams to thee, and iron sleep, he bears, and, lighting on thy prow, the form of Phoebus wears. Then thus the traitor god began his tale, the winds, my friend, inspire a pleasing gale, the ships, without their care, securely sail. Now steal an hour of sweet repose, and I will take the rudder and thy room supply. To whom the yawning pilot, half asleep, me dost thou bid to trust the treacherous deep, the harlot smiles of her dissembling face, and to her faith commit the Trojan race. Shall I believe the siren south again, and, oft betrayed, not know the monster main? He said, his fastened hands the rudder keep, and, fixed on heaven, his eyes repel invading sleep. The god was wroth, and at his temples threw a branch in Lethe dipped and drunk with Stygian dew, the pilot, vanquished by the power divine, soon closed his swimming eyes, and lay supine. Scarce were his limbs extended at their length, the god, insulting with superior strength, fell heavy on him, plunged him in the sea, and, with the stern, the rudder tore away. Headlong he fell, and, struggling in the main, cried out for helping hands, but cried in vain. The victor demon mounts obscure in air, while the ship sails without the pilot's care. On Neptune's faith the floating fleet relies, but what the man forsook, the god supplies, and o'er the dangerous deep secure the navy flies, glides by the Siren's cliffs, a shelfy coast, long infamous for ships and sailors lost, and white with bones. Th impetuous ocean roars, and rocks rebellow from the sounding shores. The watchful hero felt the knocks, and found the tossing vessel sailed on shoaly ground. Sure of his pilot's loss, he takes himself the helm, and steers aloof, and shuns the shelf. Inly he grieved, and, groaning from the breast, deplored his death, and thus his pain expressed for faith reposed on seas, and on the flattering sky, thy naked corpse is doomed on shores unknown to lie.